Welcome, everybody, to the latest iteration of Nick's Yemen Roundup, covering the time period between 14 to 27 July 2025. Apologies, we missed last week. I unfortunately had other professional obligations and needed to get those out, but hopefully this will still be helpful for you as a 2 week roundup, covering as much as we can fit as is reasonable. Just my normal commercial for myself. My name is Nick J. Brumfield. I am a professional Middle East politics researcher. I've been working on the region for the last a decade or more. I'm regularly quoted in international media as it relates to the Yemen conflict. Have an MA in Arab Studies from Georgetown and an extensive background in project and data management, GIS capabilities, as well as political risk, business intelligence, and legal consulting. So if you have any of those needs or any others that you think I might be able to satisfy, please feel free to reach out and contact me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. If you're unable or not wanting to go that far, that's fine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my content so that people who might be interested are able to find me. This is really intended to be both a service to the community in terms of rounding up everything, trying to explain as much as possible, but also is intended somewhat as an advertisement for my capabilities as a researcher for those interested. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. As always, with international affairs related to Yemen, starting off with the United Nations. A fair bit has occurred over the course of the last couple of weeks. Obviously, there's been a lot going on with the renewed crisis in the Red Sea. We did see on 16 July, the UN Security Council voted 12-0, with Russia, China, and Algeria abstaining to continue regular reporting on the Red Sea attacks from the Houthi movement. According to Russia and China and Algeria, they didn't want to vote for the motion due to attacks on Yemen's sovereignty, which was not a very veiled reference to U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Yemen. We did see on 17 June, UN Special Envoy Hans Grunberg issued a special statement stating he was deeply concerned over the Houthis' recent minting of a 50 rial coin and a 200 rial banknote. That was the first banknote that they've ever minted, and we reported on that 2 weeks ago. So feel free to check out that video if you're interested. But he stated that this was a violation of a July 2024 understanding on the economy, to de-escalate on the economy on the Houthis' part, and told them to kind of refrain from these kinds of destabilizing measures. We did see on 26 July as well the acting head, Mari Yamashita, of the UN mission to support the Hadeda Agreement was in Sana'a, where she met with Houthi-aligned Foreign Minister Jamal Amr and discussed the Houthi-aligned authorities' sort of interactions with the UNMHA. Moving on over to international affairs as they relate to the Yemeni government, a fair bit going on this week. Last 2 weeks, between 15 and 16 July, we did see the European Union mission to Yemen visit Aden. So the EU mission to Yemen is composed of a great deal of European Union country ambassadors. They all like to go in a group, and so you see, as in this picture here on the right, just a whole truckload of them getting out to meet with the officials wherever they go. PLC Chairman Rashad Al-Alimi did meet with them. This was reportedly the head of missions, Gabriel Vignales' last sort of hurrah. This was him kind of saying goodbye as he is leaving the mission, or due to the end of his assignment. We did see on 16 July, PLC member Idris El-Zubaydi who met with French Ambassador Catherine Corm-Camoun in Aden. She was also there with the EU mission. And we did see on 25 July, the Yemeni government welcomed France's recognition of the state of Palestine. So the Houthis have definitely gotten, I think, a lot of attention for their support for Palestine and in terms of launching missiles and all that sort of stuff. But it is important to note that Palestine is a very popular cause across Yemen, including Yemeni government-held areas and Houthi-held areas. And so the Yemeni government, at least officially, is very happy about France's stance. On 15 July, we did see the Supreme Council of the National Bloc of Political Parties, which is headed by former um, Yemeni Prime Minister Ahmed bin Dagher. He's also the head of the Shura Council, which is Yemen's upper house of parliament. They met with U.S. Charge d'Affaires Jonathan Paicha in Riyadh. The National Bloc of Political Parties was something of a big U.S. backed project over the course of the last couple of years, trying to essentially get all of the sort of anti-Houthi political parties on the same page, institution building, all that stuff that international community generally likes. The one major exception, of course, was the STC, which STC aligned media has kind of presented the National Bloc of Political Parties as kind of a northern tool of northern influence, accused it of being aligned with Islam. You'll see some STC aligned analysts frame it that way, which I wouldn't go so far. It's definitely the STC doesn't like it. The people on it don't necessarily like the STC, but it is still around. Since the Trump administration came in and cut funding to a lot of stuff. We have seen reports that the funding for the National Bloc of Political Parties, or the efforts behind it, have suffered. So we shall see there. We also did see U.S. Charge d'Affaires Paicha have a call on 16 July with the Speaker of Yemeni Parliament, Sultan al-Barakani, who the SDC also very much doesn't like, and there was actually quite a bit of hubbub between them over the course of the last couple of weeks. So we'll talk about that in a few slides. And on 24 July with PLC member Abu Zara al-Mahrami, who has returned to Aden, along with STC president and PLC member Idris al-Zubaydi. We'll talk a little bit more about there. To repeat, the Yemeni government did welcome French recognition of the state of Palestine, and we did see on 27 July, Foreign Minister Dr. Shaya Zandani arrived in New York for a 3-day conference on Palestine around the two-state solution, and supporting that. The Yemeni government is officially, I think, a two-state solution entity. It has not normalized relations with Israel, though. Moving on over to politics and governance from the Yemeni government side, from the Presidential Leadership Council side. So we have 2 weeks, and there's a lot that's been going on politically, at least on the Yemeni government side. So we split it up into a couple different things. This is related to sort of the 8 members of the Presidential Leadership Council. How are they all doing? Where are they all at? We started off the week with Presidential Leadership Council Chairman Rashad Al-Alimi in Aden. He had been there for almost 2 months, which was the longest he has ever spent in Aden at a single time since he was appointed chairman of the PLC way back in April of 2022. He appointed. We did see him on 15 July appoint a new Secretary General of the Supreme Judicial Council, which may, in a couple slides, may be related to the ongoing unrest we've seen in the judiciary over the course of the last couple weeks. We did see him on 24 July leave Aden for Riyadh, ostensibly to consult with regional and international partners. I'm sure that has something to do with it, but I think another major thing that has to do with it is the return of PLC member Idris al-Zubaydi, who returned to Aden after several months away, ostensibly in the UAE, but also somewhat in Riyadh, along with PLC member Abu Zara al-Mahrami. Both of these are UAE-backed, STC-aligned members of the PLC. And they've been incredibly quiet for like months. So the way the PLC tends to operate, at least on the ground in Yemen, is the UAE and the Saudi-backed members of the council kind of treat Aden like a timeshare, or at least a little bit. So whenever one of them is in Aden, the other ones almost never stay. So with almost always within a week of for instance, Zubaydi coming back, Alimi will leave. They seemingly did not have any meetings when they were both in Aden. They seem to not want to spend a lot of time together in the same city. So this is a recurring theme that we've seen there. So we did see both Zubaydi and Mahrami kind of come back into the fore after not really being very public for the last several months. Upon returning, Zubaydi really met with a bunch of people. I didn't list all of them here. He met with Prime Minister bin Barak to discuss the economic issues. He met with He visited the Aden refinery to expect ongoing progress there to try to get that back online. He did meet, kind of in the guise of being a Southern Transitional Council president with the leadership of the Shabelle Defense Forces. And he did issue orders to restructure the STC's kind of administrative structure, which included notably the appointment of Nasser al-Khubeiji to the STC Presidium. Khubeiji has been sitting in with Zubeidi quite a bit, actually, along with Mohammed al-Ghaithi, the head of the Consultation and Reconciliation Commission, who's also STC aligned. So yeah, so he seems to be getting a bit more prominent. I believe he's on the STC negotiating committee, was his kind of big. And actually, he may have also been appointed to the Roig negotiating committee. I'm not sure, but yeah, so his profile seems to be increasing there. And we did see on 18 July, PLC member Abu Zar al-Mahrami also met with Prime Minister bin Barak and Aden and discussed economic issues. He met with a variety of other ministers throughout the week. A lot of that seemed to be pretty pro forma. Mahrami is the head of the Southern Giants Brigades, which is kind of since aligned itself with the STC. He's a Salafi commander. He's not very much a politician or an administrator. He kind of keeps out of the limelight, and whenever they bring him out, it feels very forced. But yeah, he's there as well. Moving on over to politics and governance in the Roig from the kind of cabinet and government perspective, we did see on 15 July, Prime Minister bin Barak met with National Resistance Forces Political Bureau. So this is the Tariq Saleh, National Resistance Forces led by Tariq Saleh, which holds Yemen's southwest coast. They're part of the Presidential Leadership Council. But yeah, so they sent a delegation to Aden, and he met with them and stressed the need to get everybody on the same page against the Houthis, etc. We also did see on 16 July, Parliament Speaker Sultana Barakani have a phone call with Tariq Saleh after the NRF got this massive weapon seizure that it announced on 16 July, which we'll talk about in the military section. We did see on 22 July, Prime Minister bin Barak also held a cabinet meeting in Aden where he discussed various, economic issues, that kind of thing. Not too much coming out of it. And then further still, in terms of local politics in the Yemeni government side, we saw a number of contestations at the local level. On 13 July, we did see a member of an employee of the Prime Minister's office in Aden, Imad al-Jaradi, was abducted or arrested, depending on who you asked, by STC-aligned security belt forces. Ostensibly, according to some reports, he was feuding with a pro-STC journalist over, coverage and sort of how STC-aligned authorities, do certain things. But the security belt forces came out and said that this was not true. They weren't trying to repress freedom of speech. They accused Jaradi of having visited Houthi-held Sana'a and conducting or being under suspicion of conducting espionage against STC-aligned authorities. So we'll see about that. On 19 July, we did see the STC-aligned Southern Judges Club in Aden, which was a major center of focus for during previous judiciary protests and strikes, announced that it was suspending all work after recent moves by the Supreme Judicial Council against the Southern Judges Club's president. It was unclear. It wasn't clear what those moves were, but this came just a few days after Rashad al-Alimi appointed that new Secretary General for the Supreme Judicial Council. So this could probably be read, in part at least, as an ongoing conflict between STC and non-STC elements within the Roig over the judiciary, which is something that they did several years ago now. On 20 July, we did see the Judicial Employees Union announce a strike after authorities failed to address their workers' rights. So there's also a socioeconomic element going on because the government really isn't being able to pay salaries or really address a lot of the major socioeconomic issues. They also backed the Southern Judges Club. So that is of note there. We did see on 21 July the parliamentary oversight committees that Parliament Speaker Sultana Barakani and other leadership members had started forming in recent weeks did begin its field visit to Marib, where it was warmly received by local authorities that are aligned with the Islah Party, and has been conducting a variety of visits to various sites there. In contrast, in kind of STC held, Mukalla, which is held by the Hadrami elite forces, which are kind of aligned with the STC. We did see on 21 July pro-STC protesters they forced the Parliamentary Oversight Committee to leave Mukalla after, or at least leave their hotel, by surrounding it and threatening to storm the hotel if they didn't leave. The STC has wholly rejected the legitimacy of Yemeni parliament, stating it's kind of an insidious tool of northern influence and that it hasn't faced an election in, 22 years. And so, yeah, so it's very, very deeply, viscerally opposed to these committees, it seems. And so, despite asking for security from local authorities who were aware that the committee was there, the committee didn't get any of it and had to suspend their work and leave the hotel. We did see on 24 July, the leadership, including Sultana Barakani, accused, local authorities in Hadramaut, the STC, and even the prime minister of obstructing oversight committees, and they even had to suspend the Aden Taz committee because I guess they were afraid of trying to send the committee to Aden, where the STC also maintains security control and facing something similar. We've seen the Abyan Transitional Council branch say stay out of Abyan. So yeah, so this is going about as well as I think a lot of us thought it would. We did see on 24 July, pro-STC media reports that the Hadramaut Inclusive Conference, which is led by Amr bin Habrish, and has been kind of, aligned with the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance under bin Habrish in recent years. They held a large meeting, according to pro-STC media, which very important to take this with a grain of salt because these two entities are kind of engaged in an information war right now. They reported that the Hadramaut Inclusive Conference meeting in Seyoun was poorly attended. Several of its elected members didn't attend, according to this media, amid calls for new elections, which state that the Hadramaut Inclusive Conference is no longer representative of all of Hadramaut and is being kind of monopolized by Amr bin Habrish, and they should have reelected their membership in 2021 is what they're saying. And so you're seeing what the SDC is saying is that, yeah, they love the HIC. They don't like the HIC under bin Habrish, who's been very anti-STC in recent years. And so what the STC line is, we need to reform the HIC. We need to have new elections, bring it back to a body that represents all of Hadramaut. Of course, ideally, I think in the STC's mind, pro-STC in a pro-STC way. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. You see conflict in Hadramaut like this all the time. Is it going to explode? It's hard to say because, again, this happens relatively frequently. Moving over to politics and governance in the Houthi movement side, we did see a continuation of the ongoing crackdown, really a pretty severe crackdown in Ib Governorate that we've seen over the course of the last several weeks now. Between 22 and 24 July, Houthi authorities abducted dozens of new people. These are mostly professors, journalists, activists, those kinds of folks. And according to some reports, they've abducted at least 83 in recent months. Seemingly because for security concerns, it's difficult to tell. But yeah, that's going on. 24 July, we did see Abdul Malik al-Houthi give his weekly address, where he talks about Palestine and the fight against the aggression and all of that. Notably, he did call on Saudi Arabia and Jordan to open their borders for Yemeni fighters to be able to travel through them to go fight Israel in Palestine. And we did see on 27 July, Houthi-aligned parliamentary leadership, including Speaker Yahya al-Rai, as well as Prime Minister al-Rawi, did hold a larger meeting pictured here to sort of discuss, governance, that kind of thing. Moving on over to military and security behind the front lines in Yemeni government-held areas. Starting off, we did see in Marib Governorate a number of interesting developments. So that's the sort of area here. On 17 July, we did see Shabwani military commander Brigadier General Nasser al-Qahi survived an assassination attempt while he was traveling in Marib City. I believe he's head of the 165th Brigade and is also the Director General of Usaylan District, which is right here. So yeah, so this could possibly be linked, I think, to the ongoing kind of tribal dispute almost between elements of Shabwa and Marib. While they were doing a blockade, some tribesmen in Marib had killed a Shabwani driver, or member of a Shabwa tribe, I believe, several weeks ago. Subsequently, we have seen various elements in Shabwa seize trucks, for instance, that are heading to Marib, tanker trucks, that kind of thing. And so that could possibly be as a result of that, but it's unclear, and I guess it's important not to be too premature in our assertions there. We also did see on 25 July, Yemeni government Ministry of Defense announced or warned civilians to avoid the desert roads connecting Marib with Jauf Governorate to its north and Hadramaut Governorate to its northeast, as they're conducting various security operations against, kind of dangerous elements, is how you might describe them. They say terrorists, bandits, that kind of thing. Which, again, you do actually see that out in the desert because it is a relatively ungoverned space. In Shabwa Governorate to Marib's southeast, we did see in the Musna area, which I believe is right around there, the STC-aligned Shabwa Defense Forces claimed to have dismantled a suspected AQAP IED device in the Musna area of Said district, where you do see regular suspected AQAP activity. And in Aden Governorate, this was actually a big one. We did see on 23 July the Houthi-aligned former Foreign Minister Hisham Sharafuddin, was released. He 2 weeks ago, he was actually in the last call. He was detained whilst trying to transit through Aden International Airport. He is a member of the Houthi kind of aligned leadership. He was ostensibly trying to travel for medical purposes, but he does have a charge against him in Yemeni government-aligned court. And he was detained for 2 weeks, but for some reason, unclear why. Perhaps the Houthis were threatening to do something. If he wasn't, perhaps he was judged not a threat. But he was released in Aden and departed for Amman, Jordan. So that is, I'm sure that's causing some folks to not be happy, because he again, he was a former. He's not like a major Houthi leader or anything. He's a GPC member from kind of the late Saleh regime. He was kind of more of a face than anything, but he was a former member of a Houthi-aligned cabinet up until like a year or two ago. So it's notable that they would just let him go. Moving on over to military and behind the front lines in eastern Yemen, in Mahra Governorate, we did see a continuation of this kind of Muhammad al-Zaidi affair. So this was the guy who was trying to cross the border to Oman and was detained by Yemeni government-aligned forces on suspicions of being aligned with the Houthis and maybe being involved in smuggling. That resulted in clashes that in fact killed some Yemeni government force commanders. And so he's currently being held, I believe, in Ghaida. But the Hawlan al-Tayal tribes in Sana'a, way over to the west on 26 July, did rally for his release and gave Yemeni government-aligned authorities 3 days to release him before they did something. So that's more or less today, actually. So we'll see if they follow through on that. In Hadramaut Governorate, we did see on 18 July, Yemeni government first military region forces deploy to areas of the Hadramaut Desert, kind of towards the second military region, which is on the coast. So the divisions primarily kind of between the coast and the interior. This was ostensibly in coordination with the second military region to enhance security after the Zaidi affair in Mahra Governorate to the east. We did see on 25 July, this could be big actually, the commander of the 1st Brigade of the Hadramaut Protection Forces. So this is the paramilitary aligned with the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance under Amr bin Habrish, who's also involved in the Hadramaut Inclusive Conference. He's been making a lot of noise over the course of the last few months to try to, I guess, increase his own power, or at least the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance and HIC's power. But we did see the commander of their 1st Brigade, which they announced they were creating over the course of the last month or so, survived an assassination attempt in the Ghail bin Yamin district. So definitely, people are gunning for that. They don't. Some people don't necessarily want that to take place. So I'm sure folks are keeping an eye out. We also did see on 27 July pro Houthi media reports that tribesmen of the Al Jaber tribe had stopped 9 fuel tankers from entering Sayoun, which is kind of the major center in Wadi Hadramaut in the sort of north of the governorate, to pressure for the release of someone who had previously been controlling the checkpoint into Sayoun, from First Military Region imprisonment. This checkpoint leader or controller is a member of the Al Jaber tribe who had been detained, ostensibly, according to, again, to this pro-Houthi media, so it is important to take it with a bit of a grain of salt, on sort of under accusations from Amr bin Habrish as part of his ongoing campaign to, I think, gain control perhaps of various fuel checkpoints and everything so that they can control what goes in and out of Wadi Hadramaut. But yeah, so ongoing unrest there perhaps. Moving on over to military and security behind the front lines for the Houthis. Really, the big thing that happened this week was in Beida Governorate, in particular the city of Rada, which is in the northwest of Beida Governorate, which has been a perennial issue for the Houthis for years. So in a particular neighborhood of Rada, we did see on 20 July clashes reported after Houthi forces attempted to abduct a man named Mohammed al-Subahi or Subahi, which resulted in clashes. He was killed in those clashes, but so that caused an uproar. There was a tribal mediation on 21 July that reportedly brought a ceasefire, but the Houthis subsequently broke this by bringing in massive reinforcements and besieging this neighborhood. So there were further clashes on 26 July that killed 2 locals and 1 Houthi fighter. The siege was continuing. And on 28 July, we did see a Kaifa tribal sheikh. The Kaifa tribe is a very big, powerful tribe in that area. Survive a Houthi assassination attempt in Rada. This was actually the same neighborhood where all this was going down. Is the same neighborhood that the Houthis very infamously rigged a house, or Houthi aligned forces rigged a house full of civilians who were sleeping and then blew it up back in 2024. It actually made international media attention. So this is a very restive area for the Houthis. People do not like them there for a number of reasons. And so, yeah, you do kind of see this low-level, constant sort of insurgency, one might even call it. Definitely some form of resistance over the course of the last several years now, and so that is continuing. Moving on over to military and security along the front lines in Yemen, we did see seemingly the positive momentum we'd seen around reopening roads in Yemen has kind of slowed down, in particular along the Abiyan front, where there's been a lot of push over the course of the last several weeks to reopen the Thira road, which is a major sort of road linking Abiyan with Beira. So we did see on 19 July, Houthi authorities announce the opening of the Thira road from their side and called on the Yemeni government-aligned forces to reciprocate. But we did see on 24 July, pro-Houthi media report that the White Flags civilian group that has been going around Yemen trying to get these roads opened kind of as an NGO or a non-political affair, which reportedly withdrew from Thira after they were accused by the Saudi-led coalition forces of treason or kind of collaborating so they didn't like it there, so they left. But in terms of kinetic activity along the front lines, the main one this week was the Sada front, which is up here along the Saudi border. We did see between 20 and 22 July, pro-Houthi media reporting multiple instances of Saudi artillery killing or injuring civilians. This is a relatively regular occurrence. You see a lot of reports of Saudi, like not Saudi-led coalition, Saudi military forces launching artillery or firing upon it. A lot of the time, migrants, African migrants that are attempting to cross the border here. Very, very gnarly, really depraved stuff seemingly happening and well attested by international international human rights groups. So we saw that sort of continuing. But then on 25 July, we did see Yemeni government forces claim to repel a large-scale Houthi attack on the Al Ab axis that resulted in the deaths of at least 10 Yemeni government-aligned soldiers, and they claim dozens of Houthi soldiers. So this is a pretty big attack. Doesn't seem to be part of any kind of coordinated offensive, but it's bigger than we normally see with regards to the kind of skirmishes that we've seen over the last couple of years. We did see on 27 July pro-Houthi media reports that 4 civilians had been tortured by Saudi forces in the Jazan region, which is just to the west of Sada there. Moving on over to maritime security. Big things happening in maritime security this past week. Or last 2 weeks. On 16 July, we did see the Tariq Saleh-led National Resistance Forces report that I believe on 27 June, they had intercepted a ship sort of off the southwest coast of Yemen that had been transporting 750 tons of advanced Iranian munitions to the Houthis. This is a massive, record-breaking seizure of Iranian weapons by, in this case, Yemeni government-aligned forces. We're talking hundreds of advanced cruise, anti-ship, anti-aircraft missiles, hundreds of drone engines, and radar. This is a picture of it on the right here of sort of everything that they got there. We also did see reports of, this includes the Ghadir 380 naval missile, Ta'ir 3 air defense missile, the Saqr 358 air defense missile, Mirage 532 drones, espionage equipment. So this was a very big haul, and people are going to be dissecting this for years. So a lot going on there. We also did see on 20 July, the Israeli Port of Eilat announced that it had suspended its operations due to financial stress amid the ongoing Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. That's probably the Houthis' biggest achievement, is being able to completely shut down a port in Israel as a result of these attacks. On 24 July, a Comoros-flagged livestock carrier was fired upon by a wooden boat in the Red Sea, and was the carrier, I believe, was detained by the Yemeni Coast Guard before being released. This wasn't actually a Houthi attack. This was actually probably an action by the ostensibly the Yemeni Coast Guard, but probably under the control of the National Resistance Forces, which are along the southwest coast there. The carrier, I believe, was asked to go to Mocha before it was allowed to proceed. And the big story, of course, on 28 July, just yesterday, we did see the Houthis state that they will target any ships belonging to any companies dealing with Israeli ports. So not just ships going to Israeli ports. If you're a company that has a ship that has gone to an Israeli port, any ships that belongs to you, regardless of nationality. And this is obviously, we've seen the Houthis kind of step up their sort of expansion of their shipping attacks, as we've seen the attacks in Gaza increase in distress over the really dire humanitarian situation as Israel refuses to allow food in and people are starving to death. The Houthis, I think, have been responding in kind, and this is them kind of escalating yet again. The big question, of course, is, are they going to attack U.S. ships, which is ever since 6 May, they've not attacked any U.S. interests, and the U.S. has not bombed Yemen. Trump, I think, has been cool with that. The Houthis, I think, have been cool with that. But now they've progressively been expanding their range of targets, very similarly to how they expanded their range of targets in late 2023 and early 2024. Again, in sort of conjunction with what's going on in Gaza. I think some people say, they're doing this because of Iran. Oh, they're doing this for X, Y, and Z. That may very well be the case. But if you look at the intensity of their attacks and what they're going at, you really can't divorce it from what's going on in Gaza. And as happened before, if Gaza stops, I am 97% sure that the Houthis will stop their attacks in the Red Sea. They've been pretty clear about that, and whenever there's been a ceasefire, they've ceased fire. So not great going there. Moving on over to military and security from the larger sort of Israel-Houthi conflict, mostly sort of exchanging airstrikes and missiles. we saw a lot of claimed Houthi missile and drone attacks against Israel over the course of the last couple of weeks. Starting off on 16 June, they claimed a missile, 2 drones to Ben Gurion Airport, another drone to the Negev, and another to Eilat. Israel claims to have intercepted all of these kind of attacks, or they've not resulted in any injuries. 18 July, another missile attack on BGA. 21 July, another drone attacks on Ben Gurion Airport, Tel Aviv, Eilat, Ramon Airport, Ashdod. BGA again on 22 July. On 26 July, ballistic missile attack on Beersheba. So Israel's response to this on 21 July was another strike on Hadeda port, which is what they've been doing, just kind of pounding that port into smithereens over the course of the last several months, or even a year now, actually. UN stated that this strike took place during UN MHA patrols, so yes, that's not great. And so Antonio Guterres and UN Secretary General expressed concern about the attacks on this, as well as the Houthi attacks on Israel. We did see on 26 July, Israeli media reports that the Israeli military has prepared a quote-unquote large-scale offensive against the Houthis, and saying that they can do what they did to Iran recently in June to the Houthis in 12 minutes or something along those lines, but are awaiting political approval. So we may see an escalation along that front in the coming days, in all likelihood. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues. In terms of humanitarian issues, we did see on 21 July, Yemeni government Prime Minister Salim bin Barak met with UN resident coordinator Julian Harnais. Not too much to come from that, just kind of discussing how much everything sucks given, the decreased humanitarian funding to Yemen as a whole, and really so it's not a great situation. We did see on 24 July, the World Food Program resumed its emergency food distribution in Houthi-held areas after 3 months suspension due to just lack of funding, which is good news. But on 26 July, we did see the World Food Program also suspend all malnutrition prevention in Houthi-held areas, again, due to a lack of funding. So it's really just, you are seeing a genuine kind of contraction, degradation, even kind of ending of humanitarian aid provision in large parts of Yemen due to just not having any money. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues from an infrastructure perspective. In terms of energy infrastructure, we did see a big story come out on 15 July with Lloyd's List report that the evidence indicates that the Houthis are siphoning oil from the VLCC Yemen, which was a replacement for the FSO Safar, seemingly as a result of the Israeli airstrikes on Hadeda Port, Ras Isa, and Salif, which has really damaged their ability to bring in fuel, and is seemingly really kind of increasing fuel prices on the parallel market in Houthi-held areas. They're kind of pulling oil off of that. Something like 1.1 million barrels that's been sort of floating there for the last several years. I won't get into the story of the FSO Safar, but it's kind of screwy. This VLCC Yemen was bought and paid for by the UN as a replacement for a tanker, the FSO Safar, that was degrading, and it was feared that it would spill, and so they needed to replace it. And so a lot of people are saying, oh, the UN's paying for the Houthis to have a giant oil reservoir, which has been used ostensibly for Russian oil transfers. You'll probably see more coverage of that in the coming weeks. We did see in Yemeni government-held areas dozens of gas tankers strike in Abiyan Governorate over, the ongoing taxes. They're constantly being subjected to various extra legal taxes and fees. And so they struck on 20 July. We did see on 24 July electricity outages in Aden increased to 15 hours a day amid fuel shortages. And we also did see fuel shortages reported in Reda and Muqalla. And just in the last day or so, we've seen increased protests in Muqalla as a result of ongoing electricity issues and just so much stuff going on. In terms of port infrastructure, we did see a lot happen on 22 July. U.S. sanctioned 2 individuals and 5 entities in Yemen and the United Arab Emirates for smuggling fuel products into Houthi-held areas against U.S. sanctions. We did see the same day Houthi authorities said they're permanently banning the import of any U.S.-made products as part of their larger boycott. And we did see on 22 July the Houthis renew their demand to abolish the UN verification and inspection mechanism after the UNVIM, which is the UN body tasked with inspecting ships going into Houthi-held ports to make sure that they're not smuggling weapons. They reportedly instituted tighter inspection procedures on 4 July that include the full physical inspection of every container going into the port, which obviously does slow things down and increase costs in terms of being able to import stuff, and the Houthis say this is collective punishment. But yeah, that is there. And then in terms of communications infrastructure, we did see on 27 July a hacker group, not ostensibly aligned with any nation state, but it would not surprise me if it was perhaps aligned with Israel or the US, claim responsibility for a cyber attack on Houthi-controlled internet servers in Sana'a. The hackers claim to have gained access to the highest levels of control for many different pieces of infrastructure and are seemingly trying to hold the water company's kind of computer hostage or some sort. So yeah, so maybe part of that gray war we're seeing. Moving on over to banking and currency, the Yemeni Rial USD exchange rate continues to plummet against, in a bad way. It was at 29.26 in Marib on 17 July. This continued deterioration, which, it's if you compare the Yemeni government rial, which is almost at 3,000, to the Houthi rial at around 530 against the dollar, it's just lost so much of its value. We did see on 20 July, pro-STC media reports that the Central Bank of Yemen in Aden, for the first time in many years, has decided to set formal exchange rates for the Yemeni rial against other hard currencies like the Saudi rial, like the dollar. And so maybe they are trying to be a bit more harder in their stance and trying to contain that. On 20 July, we did see the CBY Aden order the Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is one of the last remaining shared financial entities between Houthi and Yemeni government-held areas. They ordered its relocation from Sana'a to Aden, seemingly as part of the U.S. FTO sanctions, but also, I think, as kind of a slap back after the Houthis started minting that currency in recent weeks, which the CBY Aden, that really pissed them off. So I think that was one of their cards that they had left. We also did see on 23 July the CBY Aden revoke licenses for 13 money exchanges for breach of laws, including as it related to counterterrorism financing, so potentially related to financing for the Houthis. And then last but not least, we did see on 25 July the CBY Aden Governor Ahmed al-Muabaki in an interview state that 75% of the Yemeni government's revenues are outside of the Central Bank of Yemen and Aden's control. This means that there are 75% of the money that the Yemeni government gets. It generates revenues through various things. They're not being deposited into the CBY. They're being deposited elsewhere, either directly to governorates or other institutions, and there's no oversight. It's difficult for the CBY to see. During that interview, he also stated that there was $225 million left in the Saudi deposit that is based at the Central Bank of Yemen in Aden. However, they're unable to disperse it without Saudi approval, which I think has been a point of contention in recent months. I think Salim bin Barak back in May and June was trying to get that released. He was unsuccessful. We did see Yemeni government-aligned Presidential Leadership Council Chairman Alimi return to Riyadh this past week. And I think that that's probably going to be top of discussion of like, hey, can you give us some more money or let us use this money that we have? So that's all I have for me. Thank you so much for listening to this extra long version of this roundup. I hope not to do this again. It was a lot of work to do 2 weeks in a row. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to our weekly schedule. But thank you so much again for all of your support. And if you want to reach me, please feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. Have a great one.